because little did you know that what we're going to do is take some tests. So I figure that's the best way to learn is to do it. So how many of you are already experiencing anxiety? Okay, so that's one of the big issues about test taking is anxiety. So, we'll be going over that as well as some other things too. But I kind of have two objectives for this meeting, and it's to help you know what your child should expect on their test. And the number one best way to do that is if you're not already doing it. Every time a teacher returns a test, get it out of the notebook or ask your student for it. If you will become familiar with the way a teacher is asking questions, or how much material they're really covering on the test, or what your child is missing, the points are being missed because they left it blank, or they're being missed because they wrote a great long answer but didn't have any of the information that the answer was asking. That will be of tremendous help to you if you want to try to help your child take a test better from home. I know that seems odd because you can't obviously come to school and take the test with them, but using the tests that they have taken and going over those with them and trying to, hopefully after hearing some things during this little session, knowing some things to look for and to point out to them and help them work on, I think you'll see a tremendous improvement in how they're doing on a test. On the sheet that you've got, these are the top 10 test-taking problems, and it might not be everywhere, but they're definitely the top 10 here. These are things that students have actually told me are their problems, either after a test, as they come in when a test is getting ready to start, or when they get the test back with a bad grade on it. And I'll say, what do you think happened? These are things that they will say. I'm in a daze, or I was just in a daze. I want you to raise your hand if any of these, when I read one, if you think it applies to your student. I'm in a daze. Anybody have those? I know this, but I'm panicked, which therefore means I can't think of anything that I know. That's one of the most painful things to watch happen to a student when you're a teacher or a parent, I'm sure. I'll never have time to finish this test. Yeah, we've got some of those. I studied, but the teacher didn't ask anything I went over. That's a big one. I know a lot of information, but I'm not sure it answers these questions. Another big one. All the multiple choice answers sound right. Where do I go from there? I don't understand what the teacher is asking on some of the questions. And then I understand the questions, but I don't know the answers. That's a different problem. I forgot to study, but I did pay attention in class, so maybe there's hope. That might be, I could pass with that. I'm clueless about the information on this test. That was a person that didn't study, tuned out of class, for whatever reason, they just don't know it at all. I've divided these up a little bit, as you may notice, because it kind of illustrates the three main reasons why students don't do well on tests. The first one, those first three, are management issues. That's either managing your anxiety and panic, or managing your focus, or managing your time. And the good news is there are more concrete ways to deal with those than some of the others. And as we go on through, there'll be some tips about each of these things in the session as we talk through it. But those are management issues. The next group is not understanding the questions well enough. This is a big issue with our kids. It's not necessarily that they don't understand the material, but they're not able to match what they know about the material to the questions that they get on the test because they're not really understanding the questions. They may have an understanding of the material, but they can't put it together with what the questions are asking. And that is the biggest area, I think, that some of our kids have trouble with. And then the last area is if they don't know the material well enough. That happens to some student in every test session, is they just didn't study enough, or they forgot to study, or they thought they knew it, but then they got to the class and they didn't. So we're going to start with that one. Just to get you, because it's fun when you haven't studied and you have to take a test. So we're going to start with that one. I'm giving you all a test. I know you haven't studied. Does everybody have a utensil? Because I brought some extra pencils, so that couldn't be a reason not to take it. You've heard that before. I think there are enough copies for everybody, but if they're not, if the teachers who are in here would give up their copy to a parent.
Yeah.
But there may be enough copies. Anybody else?
We need one more.
Okay, you have 3 minutes to take this test. There are 5 multiple choice questions on the front and 5 true false on the back. 3 minutes. Go. Did you have them already? You're not supposed to know. You didn't study, remember? This is for when you didn't study, when you don't know the information. What I'm going to show you is there's a way your student can do well on the test, even if they didn't study. You didn't go through that too fast. Just kidding. Just kidding. I told you you only had 3 minutes.
I know, that's what I was
You do
doing.
have to kind of hurry. There's some good test takers in here.
He's running out.
I have an extra pencil. Not to worry.
I ran out of ink.
Not to worry.
I scratched real hard. Maybe make it out.
I'm trying to watch and see if any of you cheat too, but I didn't say like I usually say in class, you know, I'm interested in what you know, not what your neighbor knows.
We weren't cheating, Miss Hughes. I was just checking to see which question they were on.
Oh. That's right. Okay, are we all done, or as done as you think you can get? All right, so I'm going to quickly give you the answers, and then I'm going to quickly tell you how you might could have gotten them. And the reason this is also quickly is because we've got a total of 25 minutes to cover this whole thing of how to take tests. So number 1, the answer is C. Number 2, I'm going to go over Y in a minute, but number 2, the answer is either C or D. Number 3, the answer is D. Number 4, the answer is B. Number 5, the answer is A. Yes. All right. Number 6 is false. 7 is false. 8 is true. 9 is false. 10 is true. Did anybody make 100? Did anybody pass? There are 10 questions. They'd be worth 10 points each. So that would be if you missed 5, you made a 50. If you missed, did anybody make over a 50? Awesome. Excellent. You made a C? Awesome. Excellent. Okay. By the time you leave, you're going to be able to come in and make 100 on a test like this the next time you take it without studying also. Yeah. Okay, so I intentionally didn't give you the tips of how to take a test that you don't know what the answers are to begin with, because I just wanted to see how you would do. So Eric, if you'll hand these out to the back part of the room. So these are some tips for taking multiple choice questions, and we're going to quickly go over those. Are you give her your share with me? Thank you.
Thank you.
One more? Okay. All right. The first 2 of those tips, I think the first 2, maybe the 3, are if you did study, the first 3. These are really good tips for kids who did study and know the material, but they just get confused with multiple choice. And I tell my kids to do this all the time. The ones who do it always do better on multiple choice. And that is to have a note card at the beginning of the class. It's empty. It doesn't have cheat notes on it. And cover up the choices for your question. Do not look at the choices because that throws kids off. They think either everyone looks right or they think, I don't know what it is now. My mind is jumbled. But if they will read the stem of the multiple choice without looking at the questions and answer it, then all they have to do is look for the one that most closely matches their answer. It improves their scores tremendously to do it that way. Also to read the stem out loud with each possible answer, and you treat that statement as a true false. You read the stem and then A, and the stem and then B, and you're trying to say, is that true or false? And the ones that are false are obviously not going to be the answer, and hopefully you come out with only one that you feel like is true, but even if you come out with two, you then have a 50-50 chance of guessing the right answer. Cross all the way through the answers that you think are wrong when you're trying to figure out something, because the more extra information on the question you can eliminate, the easier it is to zero in on what the actual answers are. But all the rest of those tips are if you don't have any idea what the answer is, which is what we just did. So these are just general tips. If two answers have the same or similar information, you eliminate them both. Look at number 2 on your test. How many of you noticed that 1 foot and 12 inches is the same thing?
I didn't even notice that.
Okay, so it can't, that eliminates both of those automatically, because if one of those were true, the right answer, the other one would be the right answer as well. If 2 answers contain the opposite information, one of those is usually the answer. There wasn't one of those on here, but by the same token that if 2 are too close together, they're not the answer. Generally speaking, when there's an opposite type of 2 answers, one of those is right. So that gives you that narrows it down to a 50-50 chance of getting it right. If only one answer repeats a key word from the stem, choose that one. I think, was there one on the true false that, no, this is in the next test we're going to take. We're taking another one. We'll have that example. When answers include a compound answer, like it's 2 things, A is this and this, and B is this and this, and only one word appears in all of them, and then it appears as one answer alone, it's always that one. When you have a repeated word in all the answers, but then it stands alone in an answer, it's that one. Go for that one. I know I'm going to show you. Some of these were on this test, and some are going to be on the next test. Look, so see, I wanted to have one test with you not knowing any of these tips, and then you'll have another test with them. The last 3 are on this test. Look for grammar clues. Like the reasons with an S would have to have a plural answer. A stem ending in A or an would determine how the right answer begins. So if you look at number 5, it says in The Tale of Two Cities the protagonists are, which lets you know it has to be 2 or more. Rule out answers with absolute words. Absolute words are like always, never. Those are generally not the right answer, because that means there's no, exception to the rule, which there almost always is in everything. So you rule out answers that have absolute words. And then, when all else fails, you choose C, which is the most commonly chosen answer for teachers for some reason. There's just been studies done, and C is usually the right answer. Or the longest answer. And that's because no teacher is going to write a wrong answer lengthily. It's hard to come up with wrong answers, so they're not going to write out a 2-line wrong answer.
It wouldn't have worked on this one. Just C's. There was only 2 C.
Oh, really? Are there? Well, it's not a full test, I guess. But number 3, the D is the answer, because it's, look how long it took to write that. Why would you do that if it was wrong? I mean, some of these are like, teacher tricks. And then on the true-false questions on the back, the explanations for the true-false. These are general information. Every part of a true-false statement must be true. So if part of it looks true but another part isn't, it's false. And then if you treat all true-false questions as true until you come to something that makes you think it's not true, that's the way you should go. Because generally, there are more true questions on a true-false than false. Again, that's because it's harder for a teacher to write a false question than the true question, so they do it less. So that generally speaking, there's more true than false questions. But then these others, detailed or very specific statements are usually true. Look at number 8. That's why number 8 is true on here. It's very direct and detailed. There's not much to be false there. I mean, there's not a lot of general language or things that might negate something else. But general or vague statements are usually false. Look at number 9. Most cells contain some amount of foreign material. It doesn't name what it is. It's vague. It's general. Those are usually false. Usually when a teacher's making out a test, they're trying to get to the actual information, so the kind of general things are because they can't think up a way to put it falsely, and it has to be more general. Statements with reasons in them tend to be more false than true because the reason itself often makes the first part of the statement false. This is one of those where the whole thing has to be true. So a lot of times teachers will put a true statement, but they'll give a reason that makes it wrong. And so if you just don't know, if you're just doing the guessing thing, then you generally will put something false that has a reason in it, and that was number 7. That's why that's false. The first part of that statement is true. Choose false if any absolute word appears in the statement. Again, like the multiple choice, always, never. That's number 6. That was false because it said always indicates enigmatic infection, whatever in the world that is. And then generally speaking, more answers will be true than false because false statements are harder for teachers to write. I'm not making these things up. Trust me, you're going to love this test. Now that you know all the tips, I believe you can make 100 on this test.
Do you have an index card?
For the multiple choice, I don't know.
Oh,
No, I don't. I do for you.
I'll just use my phone.
I'm out up here. You got okay. All right. So what do you think, just at first glance?
I'll let you take it for me.
Why do we have one last?
Teacher, she's taking my test for me.
Give me your test, I'll take it for you.
I got it.
I don't have one.
I don't have one.
Oh,
We're missing a. If you want.
gotta get 100.
Okay. If you don't have one, can you buddy up with somebody next to you so you can see how this one goes? Okay. So how are you
Just
feeling
checking
about
to
this
see
one?
what number they're
We're going to go through this together. You can look at your tips. The purpose of the splug and tilping is to remove A, spluglangs, B, louts, C, demolas, D, spigs. What do you think the answer is? Spluglangs is correct. How many of you thought that? Why? It repeats a word that's in the stem. Does everybody see that?
Good job.
Try not to call the answers out at first. Everybody try to get it, and then we'll see what we think it is. Blanton is true when, Blantorn. Blantorn is true when A, trug builts the sorok. What? That's right. B, the built clumps if the built is gravelled or dibbed. C, the Angus bolts. D, Tillman's rent slowly.
How would you know that?
Circle what you think the right answer is.
Everybody knows that.
How many chose B? B is correct. Why? Why is B correct? It's the longest answer. 3.
C.
C.
C. C is the correct answer on number 3. Y'all can't see number 3 in the back, but there's no question and there are no answers. But C is correct. For the guessing of not knowing, C is correct because that's the most common answer. 4. The dangled fram will zunkle better with an emil. A. B. Milltop. C. Rulp. D. Corpet.
A.
What do you think? The answer is A. Because an tells you that the answer has to start with a vowel. Do we have any idea what any of those things mean? No, but we got the right answer. 5. Among the reasons for frabbled Ross are A. The reb muzzles slowly. B. Few wobbles are bled. C, the Rabs bipped and the Derbs gleaned. D, most of the belts were cobbed.
See.
Look how good y'all are getting. C is correct. Why? Well, actually, it's because it is the longest answer, but the question ends with R, which lets you know it has to have two things in the answer. The Rabs bipped and the Derbs gleaned is the only answer with two things in it. 6, which of the following is or are, they didn't want to give it to you for that in that way, is or are always present when blurbs are being trumped? A, long glide and schmooze. B, schmooze and dross. C, schmooze. D, gruffs and schmooze.
It's the one without schmooze.
That's right. This student got it right here. How many got C? C is because a schmooze is repeated in every answer, but that's the only one where it's alone.
It's because it's C.
Because it's in every answer, but when there's a thing in every answer and then it's given as alone,
But when you don't know, it's C.
well, that's true either way. 7, the frippering work of the emil is best done with A, a slip mazzer, B, the dangled fram, C, a brushy squire, D, some bish spigots.
That just sounds wrong.
We didn't talk about this one, but we'll see how smart you are. And we're already out of time, and we didn't even do our discussion test, so I'm so sorry, but at least you know how to help your child do well on a test if they didn't know anything. That answer is B. Did anybody get it? Look up in number 4.
But I answered C.
Look up in question 4. The dangled fram will zunkel better with an emil. Then look at 7. The frippering work of the emil is best done with.
So that's where you're
Yes, this is one of those where you can find the answer to a question somewhere else in the test.
There's the light bulb.
And 8. The frond often bletherizes the felt because A, all fronds are Leonard, B, fronds are always flam, C, no felts are clefts, D, the felt is usually unfloating. D, because
Everything else is always.
yes, everything else is too absolute. Very good. I'm so sorry we didn't get to the discussion questions, but I'm going to give you the information. I'm sorry we raced through, and I'm sorry we had so
Could you
much
define
time.
some of these words?
I have no idea what they mean.
Oh.
The discussion questions give you some tips of how to help your student answer discussion questions, and on the back is a list of indicator discussion question words. It's what the discussion question is, how it's stated, describe something, discuss something, analyze something, explain something, examine something, defend something, compare something, contrast something. They all are asking for something different. Our students have a horrible time with that. What they want to do is come in, and when they see the story or the character in the question, they want to tell you everything they know about it, and they ignore what the question is asking them to do with that information. So these words are really important if you could practice them with your kids. I'll tell you what I was going to have you do, so maybe you can have them do it. And while I'm talking about that, let's hand these out. And that is, I was going to tell you that the topic of your test, will you take one of those? Well, you don't need one, pass them. I was going to tell you that the topic of this discussion test was teenagers. And then I was going to have you pass these around and have each of you write one point that you would put that describes a teenager, one point that you would put that explains a teenager, one thing that you would put that discusses teenagers, analyzing. And when you do this, you begin to realize they're not all the same thing. It's not asking for the same thing. Examine teenagers is asking for something different than explain, is asking something different than defend. That's hard to do sometimes, defending teenagers, comparing teenagers. If you can help your child zero in on a couple of concepts that are going to be on the test, and then have them practice if they had to discuss it, or if they had to describe it, or if they had to explain it, how that would look a little bit different, that will help tremendously when they're taking the test. These all go to not really being able to relate the question to the information they have. But there's a very specific way they can learn how to do that if they start paying attention to the keywords. On the first sheet that I gave you, there are also on the back of that sheet, there are tips on the back of the sheet that was about these. The specific test taking for, no, I'm sorry. Where's the first sheet I gave you? I just want to make sure you all know you have this.
That was the reasons, the top 10.
Yeah, okay, on the back of that. The top 10 test taking on the back are 10 general test taking strategies. I'm so sorry I didn't have time to go over those, but hopefully you'll be able to look at those and know what they're talking about, and that will be helpful to you soon. You're a great class. Give yourself a hand. You greatly improved on the second test, right? You did?
Yeah. And that was good. But I did use some of those things.
Okay, good. Well, thank y'all for being here, and I know it's hard at the end of the day in the last session, but I hope once you get home and look back over this, there'll be some meaningful things in
Yes,
it.
we did.
Okay,
Is there
thank
a
you.
copy machine that we get going?
I don't have to worry about it. Yes,
Okay.
just in a second. Thank y'all so much, and I'm sorry to be late to do that.
Do you want next?
I have a hard time with 25 minutes only. But hopefully you got some information that'll give you a chance to look into.
I taught steps to writing effectively.
The top 10
Organize.
in there too, it just wasn't enough.
Well, I have an extra handout if you want. I don't know where exactly they are, but I'll find them.
Okay.
They're
There,
around.
there, there. Got it, got it,
I
got it.
don't know, actually. Yep, here they are. I am shamelessly selling my, these are mine, my flyers for the steps to writing effectively.
Thank you.
Sure.
Oh, I want one. Okay.
You're here already.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
See ya. See you later.
Now,
I want
what
all
am
of
I gonna
Susan's-
eat?
I want all of Susan's stuff.
I do too.
I don't have it, but I want it because I think the ninth graders could really benefit from it if we go over it with them in skill building.
That defend, discuss stuff, I get wrong answers all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's because, I mean, even tests that I don't make up, they get it wrong.
Yeah, but so that is lovely, I love that. I may hang on to this discussion, this extra discussion question one, and then see if Susan has some other copies.
Yeah, I didn't get one of those that she passed out, oh, the tips.
Does she have extras? I'm guessing she just has her teacher copy.
teacher copy.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna just stack these here. I will probably, well, I guess I can always just share whatever it is with Jennifer if she wants it. It's on Google Docs. Yay, do I get professional development credit?